Hey there, Huzaimah. So nice to see that you've got more essays for us. Let's take a look at what you've done in this set. We've got the shoe sales in all these different countries, 9 different countries in 2018. Let's see what you wrote. First of all, let me just check your word count because it looks like you wrote quite a bit. All right, that's not bad. It's 173 words, so you're fine there. Okay, let's see what you actually said here. The graph illustrates the sales of footwear in 9 countries in Europe region in the year of 2018. Careful with the language here. That's a little unnatural. We don't say in Europe region. We say in Europe, and that's all you need to say. And then I wouldn't even have said in the year of 2018. You see, what you've got here is a lot of structural language that doesn't really add to your task here. So just clean it up, simplify it, bring it down to the words that really make a difference. So this graph illustrates the sales of footwear in 9 countries in Europe in 2018, and that's it. So in general, black leather shoes are slightly less popular than the brown leather. All right, that's fine. I mean, everyone keeps saying that. However, you know what? I think that's okay. I'm wondering if you could have maybe added one extra piece of information here. Like for me, I think it's really interesting that although maybe brown leather shoes were more popular in more countries, if you look at the highest number on the chart, it actually comes from Hungary and it actually comes from black leather. So maybe you could have said something like that. So I'm not saying that what you said is wrong, but remember that when we're aiming for those higher band scores, 7, 8, 9, we're really trying to give some information, you know, full information. So you could have added something like that. And I think that would have been really interesting. So for example, in general, although the highest sales were of black leather shoes in Hungary, overall, black leather shoes were slightly less popular than brown leather. Okay, and I think that makes a great overview. Like I said, what you wrote is fine, but when you add that extra layer mentioning that the highest figure was in Hungary in black leather shoes, it just adds an extra layer. All right, let's move on. In Belgium, why are you talking about Belgium? Let's see. In Belgium, the sales of footwear almost exclusively of the black leather type at about 100,000 pairs more than the brown leather one. For both Hungary and Italy, both types of colors were comparable in popularity with sales of over 100,000 each, although black is slightly preferred type than the other. The British also share a similar trend as Hungary and Italy, although the sales of black shoe is about 100,000 pairs, while the brown is approximately 20% less. All right, so what we've got here is some major problems with grammar. There's a lot of inaccurate grammar here, so we really have to correct all of these sentences grammatically. But apart from that, I'm not really clear on what your logic in the organization of this paragraph was. So what was going on here? Let's take a look at it again. You decided to start with Belgium, which I didn't totally understand, so I don't know why you decided to start there. You said that there was about 100,000 more than brown. Okay, fine. But you never told us what the number was, so we have this comparison, but we don't know really. Like it could have been 200,000 and 100,000, so you didn't really give us a ton of information here. And then you talked about Hungary and Italy. Both types were comparable with over 100,000 each. Okay, fine. And then the British, 100,000. Let's see, where's British? Okay. Whereas brown was 20% less. So I didn't really understand the way you decided to select the information in this paragraph. I didn't understand the order of your ideas, and I didn't understand why you selected these particular ones. It sounds to me like you decided to select the countries that um, were the highest in terms of black leather shoes. And if that's what you did, then that's good. But I would have approached it differently. So what I would have done is I would have said that 4 countries of the 9 in question sold at least 100,000 black leather shoes. Of these, the one that sold the most was Hungary, with approximately 140,000. This was followed closely by Italy with 130,000. Belgium sold slightly above 100,000, and UK just reached the 100,000 mark. Then you're done. Then I would have gone to France and would have said that only one country sold less than 50,000 black leather shoes, and this was France with approximately 35,000 black leather shoes. The remaining countries all sold between 50 and 100,000. So that's how I would have done it. Okay? Let's see what you did in your next paragraph. Germans and Polish people have similar interest. Similar interest in what? Be clear here. As they bought almost 50% more of brown leather shoes compared to black. Okay. All right. We don't have an idea of what those figures are. So we have a comparison between black and brown, but we don't really have a frame of reference as to what those numbers are. Also, for Ireland and Holland, brown leather shoes were a quarter more popular than the black. The French purchased, not were purchasing, the French purchased the least pairs of leather shoes in comparison with other countries. In general, with leather shoes, can you really say that? With brown type predominantly their choice. All right. So what I'm finding here is that in the paragraph that talks about brown leather shoes, you're comparing brown to black figures, but you're not really giving us any data. And so what happens is we're really missing some very important features here. For example, I don't know this piece of data about Poland being the highest brown leather shoe sales, or Hungary, which is slightly less. I also don't know that it was the same as Germany, so I'm really missing a lot of information here. You were on the right track here, okay, but you really need to reorganize both what you select and the way you organize your ideas, okay? As you saw, these numbers along the side are a wonderful way for you to organize your answer. They really kind of help you frame this because if you think about it, you have 18 pieces of information. You can't talk about them all. So what you want to do is select the things that are most important. As I mentioned, for me, I would have had a paragraph on black. I would have talked about these 3 or 4. Sometimes some people mention UK too. But I would have talked for sure about these 3. Then I would have talked just about France, and then I would have lumped the rest of them together. In the following paragraph about brown shoes, I would have done the same thing. I would have said that 4 countries sold between 100 and 150 black leather shoes. The country that sold the most was Poland. I would have said that amount. I would have said that Germany and Hungary sold the same, and Italy just over 100. Then I would have mentioned Belgium. Don't forget to signpost these highs and lows. So it's important to signpost that Belgium had the lowest figure in the entire chart and that Hungary had the highest black leather shoes. Those are important figures to mention. And then you can kind of just group the rest of that together. Okay, so again, you don't have to mention every single thing. You do have to mention the names of the countries. That's definitely in your best interest. There's a way to do it right in the beginning. You could say, this graph illustrates the sales of footwear in 9 countries in Europe, and then you can put in parentheses the names of those 9 countries. That's a good habit of getting into. But that's pretty much how I would have organized this. Is that the only way to do this? No, of course not. But it's one way that I find as an examiner is really clear, really just makes the data easy to read, easy to follow, and understandable, and highlights those things that are really important. Okay? So let's take a look at your task 2 now. Okay, so here's your task 2. It's about traditional foods being replaced by fast food, and the negative effect it has on families, individuals, and societies. Let's see what you wrote. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated as to whether the phenomenon of fast food replacing home prepared meals has a negative effect on families, individuals, and society. All right, careful, because it is really identical to what's in the prompt. You see here it says a negative impact on families, individuals, and society. Here you wrote negative effect on families, individuals, and society. But as far as IELTS examiners are concerned, impact and effect are essentially the same thing. You haven't really changed the language around, and so this will be counted against you. So, this essay will discuss both sides using examples from the Malaysia government and Oxford University to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Well, okay, that's fine, but you haven't answered the question. It asks you to what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement. This is not what they're asking you. They're not asking you to discuss both sides. They're asking you which side you agree with. It's really very important that you answer this in the introduction. This is what they mean when they say presents a clear position throughout the response. So if you don't give your position in the introduction, then it's not clear throughout. Throughout means from the beginning to the end. So you absolutely want to include your position, your opinion, whatever it is they're asking you, because every essay asks you something or they tell you that they want you to talk about something. You really want to and need to do that in your introduction, okay? All right, so what that means is that you should have answered it. I will see later on what your position is, so maybe we can talk later on about what you could have written here. So let's see what the body paragraph says. There is ample evidence that fast food has become, here, increasingly popular in recent decades, and this dietary transformation raised a growing concern, especially among the healthcare providers. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, fast food is an unhealthy choice when compared to the traditional foods because of high contents of sugar and salt, less fiber, and excess carbohydrates, S here. Okay. Energy dense and poor nutrition. No, you can't say that. The energy density and poor nutrition of fast food promotes higher calorie intake and subsequently increases the prevalence of obesity and associated diseases such as coronary artery disease and stroke. Secondly, community preference for fast food will sever the link between consumption and local production. Instead of supporting the local agricultural activities, fast food promotes growth of supermarket chains and importation and suppressing national economic growth. For example, a recent survey conducted in IPO showed that 5 rice processing plants have closed down since 2010 when 3 new fast food outlets opened in the town. Therefore, it is clear there are undoubtedly critical negative implications of fast food on the community. Okay, so this was rather long. I mean, you certainly developed quite a bit. Let me see something here. It must be around 400 words. Yep, exactly 400. So you could have gotten rid of some of this. Remember what this is supposed to be about, the negative impact on families, individuals, and society. It's not totally direct which of those 3 you're talking about. At the end, you talk about like, okay, well, this is how it affects community. So you could say that you're talking about the negative effect on society. But what that means is that in the next paragraph, you have to talk about families and individuals. You really need to, because that's what they've asked you to address. I think that you probably could have cut some of this out. I don't think all of this paragraph was necessary. through it again, and I can't really pinpoint something that was extra, something that was unnecessary. I mean, here you talked about the effects of this food on our health because of the calories, the sugar, and the salt. And then here you talked about how it affected like the primary sector with agriculture. So I didn't really pinpoint something that I thought was superfluous, something that wasn't necessary. But I'm wondering if maybe you could have economized. Now, if you're able to write all of this in 40 minutes, then please go ahead and do so. But what I find is that most students do have a hard time writing quite so much in a short period of time. So if that's the case, you need to find ways to maybe reduce the number of words that you're writing. Let's take a look at your next paragraph. Although there is a case for fast food to have a negative effect on the community, the advantages of it cannot be overstated. This is largely because of the ease and convenience of fast food in providing quick and delicious meals for the whole family, obviates, I don't know about this word here, time spent preparing and cooking, and allows for other activities. I really would have preferred a different kind of sentence structure here. This feels a little awkward. First of all, there's quite a few ands. Look at this. It's a sentence where you've got and. So the linkers that you have in this sentence are really rather basic. I'm wondering if maybe there is something you could have done to make it a little more grammatically complex, not so much of this and. Or maybe you could have broken it into a couple of different sentences. That's an option too. Also, maybe you've got some words here that are unnecessary. So ease and convenience, you could have economized and just used one of those. They're fairly synonymous, okay? So you could have gotten rid of that. Okay, so let's see. This is largely because of the convenience of fast food in preparing quick and quick and delicious meals for the whole family, comma, reducing the time spent cooking while allowing, or no, how about this? Thus allowing time for other activities. Okay, so that's a little more higher level, and that's the kind of sentence I'd like to see you writing. I didn't do anything crazy difficult or sophisticated, but it's the kind of sentence that I think might have worked here a little better and got rid of all of those ands. Let's see, let's move on. For example, a retrospective study by Oxford University, the Oxford University, showed that a mother has about an hour extra time with her children if she brought, all right, what's going on with the grammar here? Has if she brought. So, a retrospective study by Oxford University showed that a mother had about an hour extra time with her children if she brought home takeout food rather than preparing a traditional meal. Furthermore, the economic growth associated with new businesses will prosper because of an abundance of fast food outlets and employment opportunities. Thus, it is possible to state that the transition from traditional foods to fast food associated is associated with significant improvement of quality of life. Okay, fine. So, from the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that you don't need this comma. Although fast food provides an invaluable contribution to our lives, the negative impacts on health and economic growth cannot be disregarded, and its implications to the future generations is considerably worse, especially without interventions. Okay, so I actually like a lot of what you wrote. I thought you did really well. I thought it was an interesting, very mature, very kind of well thought out argument. So now let's talk about where the problems are. Well, the first problem is here. You said you were going to discuss both sides. You also said you were going to talk about the Malaysian government. You never actually named it as such anywhere in your essay. So that's one thing I want you to think about. And then, remember what I told you here. To what extent do you disagree? Do you agree or disagree?
So this statement is entirely wrong. It's not this essay will discuss both sides, but instead it's this essay will discuss how fast food has a negative impact on individuals and society, yet is positive for busy families. Because that's really what you end up talking about, isn't it? I mean, here you didn't really say individuals directly. You talked mostly about like, I would have liked you to just kind of point that out a little more specifically. But yeah, you were talking about the negative implications on the community. So if you had talked maybe a little more specifically about individual health, that would have been good. But that's really what you talked about, that it was bad for those two layers of society. And then here it was actually kind of positive because these families had more time to spend with each other. So you really, really, really needed to rewrite this so that your introduction actually reflects what you discuss in your body paragraphs. Okay? So that's a big thing for me. Let's see. So yeah, you kind of needed it to reflect that you're sort of in the middle, that you can see both the positives and the negatives. But again, you have to make it very, very clear, especially in an essay like this, where they say, to what extent do you agree or disagree? You can't just say, oh, I'll talk about both. That's not what they asked you to do. If you choose to talk about both because you think there's validity to both, that's fine. But just make it clear in your introduction. All right. So I've given you a couple of ways that you can do that. I've made a couple of suggestions how you can phrase that. Okay. You could have said this essay will discuss both sides using examples as to why fast food is beneficial for families, but also why it is detrimental to individuals and society as a whole. Okay, so again, just another way of how you could have phrased this. All right, so that's quite a bit for this correction. Go ahead, correct these, return them back to us, write another set, and we'll meet back here with that next set. I'm looking forward to it. So good luck.